It's from We Invest in Nationhood. It's morning, huh? Sorry, I'm just pushing the day ahead. Please forgive me. I'm so excited to get ahead and going with things. Of course, today we are going to be addressing a number of issues that we would like to bring to the fore. And so we will go through, we have a number of persons present here today on the panel. We have MP Barka, we have MP Singh, and we have, do I say MP Dr. Richards? I'm just kidding. And we have MP Richards with us here today, yes. And of course, yours truly, Odessa Primus. It sounds so vain to say MP Odessa or MP Primus, okay. But of course, we'll be going through those issues with you today. As persons would have indicated as well, some issues that were brought to us, as well as current and national issues, and of course, in the case of Mr. Richards, MP Richards, issues that are specific to what's happening within his region. So I would no longer like to continue this preamble, but for us to get right into the meat of things. Before we do, I'd like to additionally say thank you to the media for being here. You guys have been doing a fantastic job as it relates to ensuring that information gets out there, and we're more than happy to have you. I know usually at these press conferences, the media is hardly ever thanked, so I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you very much for coming, and of course for us to proceed into dealing with the issues as we would have selected for today. Go ahead.
It's up to me.
Yes,
all right.
Yes, up to you.
All right, good morning to all of you in public. Dr. Richards here, and it's a pleasure for me to be here on this panel today as we address these issues affecting the country at large, and also those issues affecting our different regions. Now, particularly, I'm a representative, or the MP representing Region 10, and currently right now we have one particular burning issue that has been in the public domain affecting us for some time now, and that issue revolves around the reconvening of that very crucial meeting we need at the RDC level in Linden so that our regional chairman and regional vice chairman can be elected. Now, the elections, regional and general, have long passed. The national budget has also been passed in the National Assembly, but to this date, we are still left in limbo without a functioning RDC. At present, we have the current outgoing regional chairman. He is still functioning. He is working along with the REOs at present. But coincidentally, our outgoing regional vice chairman, in a sense, he has been sidelined, right? I have been reliably informed that it's gone so far where he has not even been paid for January and February, as I was informed. And I just want to address this matter because I think it's a very important one. Our regional councillors, our elected regional councillors, whether they be for WIN or the PPP or APNU, they're also being sidelined and left in limbo, you know. They cannot properly execute their mandate as councillors. Because they have a mandate as councillors where they would go out into the communities far and wide in the different regions. In Region 10, for example, they would go in different areas, whether it's on the Mackenzie, Wisma Shore, in the mines of the Borbis River, of the Demoir River, right? We would do outreaches. I mean, that's a normal protocol of things. They would interact with the communities. Some of these councillors are from these set communities, right? Where people in the community can communicate with their councillors, get the issues affecting the areas, and then at statutory meeting or different committee meetings, as you would call it at the RDC, these problems and these issues can be ventilated. But such proceedings have been put to a standstill because of the RDC not being able to function correctly, because we do not have the regional chairman and vice chairman duly elected. So I just want to address or put this matter out today to be addressed. And I want to call, at this forum, I want to call on the REO to fulfill its mandate, do your job, reconvene that meeting so that Region 10 can move forward and have proper oversight, proper administration on the RDC level. The minister, the subject minister for local government and regional development has already stated, she has no part to play in that, right? That was well ventilated in the public space. So it lies on the REO now to do his job and convene that meeting so that proper leadership can be elected for the RDC. On that subject matter as well, they have other vital posts that are also vacant at the RDC level in Linden. The assistant REO, or the AREO as we normally call it, that seat has been vacant for many months now, right? I think a year has passed, I think, right? Perhaps. Also, the deputy REO, the last deputy REO we had in Region 10, he was transferred and moved to Region 1. And since then, we have not had any person to replace that individual and have that post filled. So in terms of the RDC, it's severely lacking in leadership and administration oversight. So, and we would like to address this matter and see it ventilated here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, MP Richards. One of the things that we have seen out in the public a lot, being pushed by the government, is the importance of everybody in oneness. And in that vein, Region 10 is just as important to us as the rest of the country and should be treated and given the same respect as the other parts of this country. And they have been able to have their chairmans and vice chairmans and so on duly elected and have been able to carry on with the business within those regions. And I feel as though it is disrespectful to the people of Region 10 to have this process basically being held hostage at this juncture. Cannot be. I'm sure that if the PPP would have won that region, the CC would not have existed. And so they are, to some extent, facilitating the holding back of this process. And I believe that we cannot and should not have to carry on in this vein. Give the respect that is due to the people of Region 10 and get on with the business so that the people who are supposed to, the office bearers, can now take up their rightful seats and, of course, for the business of that region to be run in a way that is smooth and is in the best interest of the people. At the end of the day, as I'm sure you would agree with me, MP Richards, the business of the people is what is most important.
Indeed.
And if that is affected, it therefore means that not just Region 10 is affected, but all of us are affected by the fact that the region is unable to move forward, that people over there have to suffer, basically, because of the lack of willingness to ensure that the process is properly executed. We will now hear from MP Singh.
Thank you. That's a pleasant morning, everyone. Members of the media, thank you for being here. This morning, I want to address two urgent matters that raise serious questions about the value that we believe the PPP government places on human dignity and safety of the people in our country. The first issue is the worsening treatment of the Guyanese workers at the Chinese-owned mining company, Zhejiang Mining, that's at Aurora Gold Mines. And we believe that the matters raised by the employees from that company deserves immediate national attention, accountability, and action from the relevant authorities or agencies who are responsible for ensuring that our Guyanese workers, our people, are treated as they should. And the second issue is the tragic death of the two little angels, Tiana DeCourt and Jaden DeCourt. And I want to address how the PPP government is failing again to protect the people of this country, failing to protect our children. Because I'm sure that we have all seen, only after these two lives were lost, that whether it is the government or the contractor, it all comes down to instructions passed by the PPP government. They have now gone and put up some sort of barricade around that area. And this is exactly what we mean when we speak about how this government is more reactive than they are proactive. So on February 24th, 2026, that's this year, recently, we would have seen a video posted by the leader of the opposition, Mr. Azruddin Mohammed, and that video was posted on his social media page, and I believe also on the We Invest in Nationhood social platform of employees from the Zhejiang Mining Company, where they provided video evidence of the unsanitary food provided to them. It was shown clearly in that video that there were pieces of plastic, flies, and hair in the food that was provided to them by the company. Now, right there, we can see a complete breakdown of health and safety issue when it comes to our workers, and a disregard for the basic humanity and basic human dignity towards our workers and the people of this country. We all know if not all of the workers who work in these mining operations are individuals who leave their homes miles and miles away to go and work there to provide a living for their family, a comfortable life. And because of the locations of these companies, in the remote interior locations, it is very difficult for the workers to take their own food or find food and accommodation in there. And most times what happens is that the companies provide the food and accommodations for the workers. And I could be wrong, but I am assuming that accommodation and food forms part of the compensation package for these workers, because we all know the Chinese don't do anything for free or give us anything for free. We have been into the little shops in Regent Street and we see nothing is free from the Chinese, right? So it is for this reason that, workers, because they're unable to provide their own food, it is for this reason that workers at Zhejiang Mining should not have to choose between going hungry or eating contaminated food, which poses many, many health risks for them. According to publicly financial disclosures, which were issued in August 26, 2025, it was said that Zhejiang Mining earned over $200 million in the first 6 months of 2025 alone from Aurora Gold Mines. And yet our workers responsible for generating that revenue for that company have to deal with contaminated food, unsafe work conditions, inhumane treatment. We have also had complaints from the workers there of having to work in flooded work site. We have had complaints that there are no toilet facilities at the work sites. Employees are forced to find alternative measures when they want to relieve themselves. And when they speak about alternative measures, it's literally finding some corner to relieve themselves. There are absolutely no toilets. So it is wholly unacceptable for our government to allow these foreign companies to exploit our natural resources while these companies are treating our workers like second-class citizens. About the matter, the video that was released by the leader of the opposition on February 24th, I have written to the Minister of Labor and Manpower Planning, outlining the injustices to our people. I have also requested from him a copy of any report, if an investigation was done, any report stemming from that investigation, because I believe in transparency. However, to date, I have not received a reply from him. I do not anticipate, honestly, I do not anticipate a response from him. However, We were chosen to represent the people, and it is my responsibility to request that report. If an investigation was not done, we are calling on the minister to immediately intervene at Aurora Gold Mines, a full investigation into the camp conditions, food safety, and labor practices. We are asking for enforcement of the existing labor laws. The labor laws are there to protect our workers' rights. It is there to ensure workers have fair working conditions to work under. We are asking for public disclosures on any findings from these investigations. And we are also asking, because this was an issue, workers were victimized when they came forward and complained of the living conditions and the working conditions, the conditions that they're working under at this gold mine. So we are asking for protection for these workers when they come forward and highlight the working conditions at these mining camps. And the second issue is the issue with little Tiana and little Jaden, who tragically drowned at the water pump, the Guyana Water Inc. pump station on the east coast of Demerara. Now, there are several troubling issues arising out of that, and that situation is so sad it could have been unavoidable had the government, again, been a little more proactive than reactive. From the videos, the many, many videos we have seen on social media and the pictures, it is clear that it is an unfinished and unsecure work site. That alone, you know, establishes responsibility, or who is responsible for ensuring that that work site has health and safety protocols or measures are installed. Now, the contractor has a legal duty to ensure that health and safety protocols are followed, and those would include, like they have done now, putting a barricade around there or erecting warning signs, you know, saying the edges are soft and if you go there you can slip in. They are especially children. Children, if they, and like, we know our children are smart, and had they had signs there, I am sure those children would not have gone there. And today, those two little angels would have been alive. But none of these safeguards were in place, and that is evident from the many, many videos we have seen posted with that site. And like I said earlier, it was only after 2 lives were lost that they went and put up a barricade, which could have been done in the first place, which should have been done in the first place. But the responsibility does not only end with the contractor. This is where the Ministry of Labor and Manpower Planning comes in, because they have a mandate to ensure that every single work site in Guyana, whether it's privately owned, publicly owned, small organizations, large organizations, even the shops on Regent Street, the Ministry of Labor is responsible for ensuring that health and safety, the health and safety laws and the procedures and protocols are observed by these corporations and shops. And again, let me make this clear, it's the ministry and by extension the government, because the ministry is part of the government. But I have questioned before, and I'm going to ask the same question again, whether this ministry has sufficient resources to do what they are mandated to do. If we look at this year's budget, I believe this is the ministry that has the smallest sum allocated. A ministry that is responsible for every single worker in Guyana. You know, the very people whose backs our country functions on, and they got the smallest amount in that budget. So my question is, does the ministry even have enough trained and competent occupational safety and health officers to carry out its mandates? Or are those officers equipped, supervised, and deployed effectively? Because if inspections were done properly, that unsecured trench would have been noticed, and actions would have been taken to correct or at least place warning signs there. That was not done. I am not, something maybe the minister can advise us is, or if they do not have this, what they can take into consideration is periodic checks on businesses in Guyana to ensure that health and safety procedures and protocols are in place. But again, it comes back to, do they have the resource to do it across all 10 regions in Guyana? Now, the deaths of Tiana and Jaden, it demands more than our sympathy. We are absolutely tired of hearing the government speak about accountability and investigations. Investigations are always being done, but we do not ever see the report published. And so how are we to know, yes, it was done correctly, and what the findings are? A full explanation is needed from GWI, from the contractor, and from the Ministry of Labor and Manpower Planning. The public needs to know who is responsible for securing, or who was responsible for securing that site, because now it's secured. There are questions like, were inspections done by the ministry? If so, where are the reports? And if inspections were not done, why not? There is the other question of the contractor and the contract for that work site there. Is that contract overdue, like many other works, public works being done in Guyana? And if it's overdue, when is it scheduled to be completed? How many more work sites across Guyana currently are in unsafe condition? The PPPC government needs to do better for the people of Guyana. They need to do better for our children. And I believe the people of Guyana needs to wake up and see, because it is absolutely blatant out there that the PPPC government does not care about anybody except themselves. It is always only what benefits them and their friends and family and favorite. That's what gets done. Projects that enrich the lives of the average man on the street, it is left lagging. So I am calling on the Ministry of Labor and Manpower Planning, on the government, to do better by the people. More health and safety checks needs to be done. And, you know, we cannot sit, or we should not sit and wait for another tragedy to happen until these things are done. So, speaking about being reactive than proactive, the entire government system needs to stop being, you know, reactive. They need to get up and start doing the jobs, doing what the taxpayers are paying them to do. And they need to stop waiting on the leader of the opposition, Mr. Azruddin Mohammed, to go out there and point out issues and tell them how to do their jobs before they get it done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, MP Nandrani Singh. Also, the report that was mentioned by the MP will be requested formally by question to the Parliament of said minister. Thank you very much again. So again, I would like to reiterate the fact that we've got to move from being a reactive to a proactive country as a whole, and in this case the government, because it begs the question of which other pump stations or sites or other places that may be unsafe, to whether it's children or adults that are not protected, that do not have sufficient signage around the areas to indicate same. So we cannot continue to wait until lives are lost or people are seriously injured before we get into the ensuring that we do the right thing. And for those who might be wondering why I have my phone, so I have my information and so on my phone, and I'm making notes here. Some people choose to use their computers and their laptops and so on, but I'm very comfortable with my phone. So if we may, at this point, go to the next speaker, and that would be MP Barker.
Pleasant good morning to all our viewers. I wish to start by saying education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Nelson Mandela. Education must always be a space of safety, dignity, fairness, and opportunity. When systems designed to protect students, support educators, and serve communities begin to falter, it becomes the responsibility of leaders and public officials to speak out and demand accountability. It is within this context that I raise several pressing concerns affecting the integrity of our education system, the welfare of students, the quality of governance and public services within Region 3. Firstly, I am deeply concerned about recent developments involving the treatment of a schoolgirl who was reportedly dragged by 2 welfare officers. While the incident itself is disturbing and must be thoroughly investigated, it also exposes a deeper structural problem within the public service, namely the severe shortage of welfare officers tasked with supporting students across the country. When a limited number of officers are responsible for managing the complex social and behavioral challenges affecting hundreds of students across multiple schools, the workload becomes overwhelming. This leads to frustration, fatigue, and burnout. While inappropriate conduct can never be justified, the reality is that an overburdened welfare system places immense strain on officers who are expected to respond to crises within limited institutional support. Strengthening the number of welfare officers in the public service is therefore essential to ensure that both officers and students receive the support they deserve. This concern is further compounded by the limited counseling capacity within Region 3. The Department of Education reportedly has only 2 guidance and counseling officers to serve the entire region at the education office. 2 officers cannot reasonably address the growing numbers of cases involving bullying, behavioral challenges, mental health concerns, and family-related trauma affecting students across dozens of schools. If we are serious about safeguarding students, we must invest in a stronger network of counselors, welfare officers, and social support professionals. Another important matter that requires urgent attention is the need for the Ministry of Education to clearly define bullying within the school system. International research consistently identifies 3 key elements of bullying: repeated behavior, intentional harm, and a power imbalance between the aggressor and the victim. At present, there appears to be confusion among parents and students regarding what constitutes bullying. I have received numerous complaints from both parents and teachers who report that every instance of aggression or conflict is being labeled as bullying, even when it may involve isolated disputes or mutual disagreements between students. This lack of clarity can lead to inconsistent disciplinary responses and unnecessary escalation of minor incidents. The ministry, therefore, should establish a clear national framework that categorizes the various forms of bullying, such as physical, verbal, social, and cyberbullying. And they should outline levels of reprimand or intervention for each category. Such a framework would help teachers, parents, and students distinguish between general student conflict and genuine bullying, ensuring that serious cases receive the attention they deserve. Another pressing national issue is the persistent shortage of special education needs teachers and trained specialists across Guyana. Inclusive education requires properly trained professionals who can support students with dyslexia, autism spectrum disorders, ADHD, intellectual disabilities, and other developmental challenges. In many cases, teachers in mainstream classrooms are left to manage these complex needs without adequate training or institutional support. Now, ideally, special education settings should maintain a teacher-to-student ratio of approximately 10:1, supported by a teacher aide, ensuring that learners receive the individual attention required to succeed. However, such ratios must be determined by the level and type of disabilities of the learners, as some students require far more intensive supervision and specialized intervention. I have also received information indicating that a new YAS school is currently accommodating only about 30 learners, and that the children must leave the program after reaching the age of 7 years. This raises serious questions about where these children transition to afterwards, and whether adequate specialized services exist to support them as they grow older. Compounding this challenge is the fact that many other SEND spaces and schools across the country face a severe shortage of trained specialists, including special education teachers, therapists, and behavioral support professionals. Without urgent investment in specialized personnel and expanded services, many vulnerable children risk being left without the consistent support required for their development and inclusion within the education system. Additionally, I wish to highlight the ongoing concern affecting part-time lecturers at Sirpota College of Education. These lecturers play a crucial role in preparing the next generation of teachers. Yet many of them report waiting several months before receiving payments for services already rendered. Such delays in remuneration are unacceptable and undermine the professionalism of educators who contribute significantly to the development of Guyana's teaching workforce. Institutions responsible for teacher training must operate with efficiency and ensure that lecturers are compensated in a timely and respectful manner. As the geographical Member of Parliament for Region 3, I must also address concerns regarding governance within the Regional Democratic Council. Reports indicate that the regional chairman has unilaterally appointed councillors to RDC committees without adequate consultation or equitable representation. Such actions undermine the principles of transparency, fairness, and democratic participation that should guide regional governance. Committees must reflect inclusivity and respect the role of all elected councillors. Furthermore, residents of Tushin have raised serious environmental and public health concerns regarding waste management practices in the community. Through reports brought to my attention and videos shared on Facebook and TikTok platforms, residents allege that refuse collected along the Tushin public road is being transported and dumped in front of the homes of residents in Tushin Back area. This practice is unacceptable. Waste management must never involve relocating refuse from one community only to burden another. Residents deserve clean surroundings and responsible environmental management. Taken together, these issues, the troubling welfare incident involving a schoolgirl, the shortage of councillors and welfare officers, the lack of the need for a clear bullying framework, the lack of sent teachers, delayed payment for CPC lecturers, governance concerns within the RDC, and improper refuse disposal affecting residents of Tushin highlight systemic weaknesses that must be addressed with urgency. Education and public service must operate on the principles of accountability, professionalism, and respect for the people we serve. Our students deserve safe institutions. Our educators deserve dignity and timely remuneration. And our communities deserve responsive governance and proper public services. With that said, I wish to reaffirm that I remain committed to advocating for transparency, fairness, and the strengthening of systems that protect our students, support our educators, and uplift our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, MP Parker. One of the things I would like to add, especially as it relates to welfare officers, is that a degree should not be all that qualifies you to be able to get the job. And so it is also the concern or the capacity of these people, their mental state, as it relates to the situation with the young lady who was, or the child rather, who was dragged by her hair and arms by somebody who is supposed to be there to protect the child, to ensure that they are protected, is the person inflicting harm on these children, and that is reason for concern. I mean, this is something that we would have been able to see because it was recorded and publicized, but one must ask how many other children are suffering that are not recorded on camera. And so, you know, it questions the entire system that is there to protect our children. And I do hope that there is an opportunity for these officers to be able to offload as well. Because when there is all this unloading of the problems, the situations, what offloading mechanism is in place? And I do know that in very many instances, the government likes to say we have a council that is there that these officers can go to, but this has to be a mandatory activity on a regular scheduled basis, because there is regular unloading onto these officers. And so there has to be systems that are mandatory, that are in place for them to be able to offload as well. Additionally, that child in that situation, I do hope that counseling is provided for that young lady, for her family. And I do know that in very many instances, while we focus on the people who are involved in the direct situation, everybody who would have viewed that video is affected. And so I do believe that there should be a public forum that allows for education purposes, that allows for, in terms of in these situations, that can also assist in terms of the mental state and how persons who would have viewed it would have been affected and so on. So, you know, I do hope that that happens as well. There has been an issue out in the public that I would like to address as it relates to the leader of the opposition, Mr. Azruddin Mohammed. I know that there's a video that has been in circulation of him at a masjid, where I think he went to break fast, and he would have spoken about gay people, two specific gay people being referenced, though not in that video, but referring to two ministers who would have entered the masjid. And as someone who has advocated for human rights over several years, I think that it is fitting, because I don't want anybody to feel as though we're afraid to speak on it or uncomfortable. And I think that if we are going to consider human rights holistically, a person's religious belief should be considered in that consideration of human rights. I don't need to agree with your religion. I don't need to subscribe to your religion, but I need to respect the fact that this is how the Muslims feel, or sections of the Muslim society feels. And we have to respect that. I can understand persons in the gay community being offended, and perhaps because they see it as discrimination. But across society, if we are to take discrimination for what it is, we discriminate all of the time, because the only people who are invited here today would be those people who are going to be here on the panel from WIN and the media. So why aren't other people allowed to be here? That in itself is discrimination. We just have to accept that this is what it is. You know what I found quite strange and interesting was Minister Susan's response, which included me being part of an activity that she was present at. For the first time ever, at least publicly that I have seen, Minister Rodriguez has never said she's a gay person. We know that she's in a relationship with a woman, she's posted pictures and so on. And I found it quite interesting that this is the opportunity that is used to suddenly decide that you're a proud gay person. With that in mind, I did note also, just less than a week ago, there was an activity where a gay man went on stage when they called out for the women to come up to dance, and bottles rained out of the sky like there's no tomorrow. Right? At no point did the leader of the opposition say anything that incited violence against a group of people, but their violence is what the member of the gay community was met with. And I didn't see proud Susan coming out to say that, well, we disagree with, or we don't want this man who identifies as a woman to come out here and act as if he's a woman. It should not have been met with violence. We should deal with things in a different way. We should, there was no uproar from all of these ministers, including On Edge, who has responsibility for things like security. Where was that outrage, On Edge? Where was that post? But because it involves the leader of the opposition, and you, as a party, have a personal problem with him, then you use the gay community and their rights and so on to now suddenly have a voice. If we are going to be serious about human rights, and we are going to be serious about the gay community, then let's do that. Don't let's just come out here to score cheap political points. Oh, I care about the gay community. Where has that representation been from the proud lesbian for any form of advocacy for lesbians in this country? Where has that been? You sit in a public office. You've been holding some degree of power for over 5 years, and there's been no advocacy on your part in any way, shape, or form. Attending a conference and saying that this is how you feel is all that you have done with the power that you have for persons within that community. Where is Kwame in all of this? Where does he come out and do anything and represent any way for the community? I've noted that there have been calls for SASAN, and I saw that they did put out a statement and so forth. And I respect that as well, as I would have indicated to somebody that I know who's part of the organization. It does not by any means offend me, and I'm sure I haven't asked the party, but if I can be so bold to say that offends us for people coming out and giving their perspective on something, whether or not it is contrary to what we agree with or what we subscribe to, that is perfectly fine. In fact, when I first noted the video, I thought that this is a fantastic opportunity, whether or not we agree or disagree, to have a forum, to have these discussions, to talk about it, not for us to fight and argue, because it doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help the people who are opposed to the idea, nor does it help the people who are part of the gay community in any way, shape, or form. So this should have opened for dialogue, for an opportunity for us to have better understanding, perhaps even a compromise if people are so inclined, one of the things I also noted is that a lot of these opinions, because this started in a mosque and is put out as the position of the Muslims. And very many of us, and I know Christianity does share some of these same views as well, but it is interesting that we would have heard from all of these ministers, but we haven't heard from any minister who's Muslim. Interesting. It is additionally interesting that we haven't heard from the CIOG, which is the Central Islamic Organization of Guyana. We haven't heard from the GIT, Guyana Islamic Trust. I don't know if it's pronounced Mulana, but I know the learned Muslims, I think it's Mulana or I may be wrong. Don't beat me up on this one. We haven't heard from those scholars, as we would say in Islam, that contradicts what was said by the leader of the opposition. Now, my thing is, and I did note that someone said, perhaps Azadin is homophobic. And I found that to be a sad statement to make, because that same cross-dressing homosexual called me and attended a meeting before we even formed the party with the leader of the opposition, who sat there and listened to him and another cross-dressing individual. So for you to say that a man would sit down to meet with you, to listen to your concerns, and then the next day describe him as being homophobic, it's a sad state. It's either we having a candid discussion that is clear and that is reasonable, or we are not. And I do hope that, even though I would have seen the sentiments shared by everyone, that it opens the door for an opportunity for us to have discussions, not just on, because based on my understanding, the Muslim rule that governed those two people not being there in that sacred space also governs me not being there in that space. And I'm not homosexual, but I have not conformed to the laws of Islam. So that takes me out of that space completely, as it does every other person who is not Muslim. But because that specific situation was referring to those two people, based on my understanding, members of the community, the Muslim community, were outraged about, hence that discussion. So it's not about the leader taking an opportunity to attack a specific group of people. So I just thought that needs some degree of clarity, because it is being used and peddled for political mileage, again, using the members of the community, which is unfortunate, and it isn't helpful. So I thought I'd put that out there as well. Additionally, we have seen a lot of things out there in the public happening as it relates to our activities as new members of Parliament, as a new party. And I would like to say that we are very proud to be on scene, and we are very happy to serve the people of this country. WIN is a new movement, and the expectations of us, they're grand. Of course, we are now putting very many systems in place as a new party, and I would like to appeal to those persons, because sometimes people become frustrated when we are doing certain things at a pace that they consider to be the pace that things should be moving at. If there are two people in this equation, or two parties, it would be the PPP and the PNC, who were or are capable of just running off immediately after an election is completed, because they have systems in place. Even though they have not been doing that for the most part, we are a new party, and so we have to be running off. Well, I haven't been doing much running, as you can see, but we have to get the work done, and we also have to be able to put the systems in place that is needed, as the party was just born a couple months ago. So we are doing that at the moment. I do note that many people call with questions and concerns and queries and so forth, but in the not so distant future, we are going to be able to have some of those systems that you are looking forward to having being laid out. And of course, we are not camera shy, so we will be more than happy to come publicly and inform you as those things start to roll out. So at this juncture, I would like to open the floor. I don't know if there are any questions from the persons in the media, and of course, persons who are viewing via social media may also have some questions that we may or may not be able to respond to at this point. So I would like to open the floor for any questions.
I would like to ask a question, but given in recognition of International Women's Day, I will allow my females to take the stand.
I like that.
Ladies first. For gents, so you have any questions before I
Good morning, everyone. Williams, Nigeria. Over the past, I would say, few weeks, or should say a few days, there's been an issue trending in the media in relation to the Cuban Medical Brigade. Now, we know that this brigade has been around for over 40 years, before I was born, as a matter of fact. And yesterday, members from the OVP, the Office of Victory for the People, they were submitted a letter to, I believe, the President's Office, and also the Minister for Affairs. It was signed by over 100 Guyanese organizations and also prominent Guyanese, asking for the president to basically have a talk with Donald Trump when he gets to the US to have this brigade reinstated. Now, taking into context that Guyana has 12 new hospitals that the government has been boasting about, and we've been struggling to staff these hospitals, and the Cubans have been doing a tremendous job. Going forward, what does Ben see happening, not just to our healthcare system in central Georgia, but also in the outskirting areas?
The last part of the question, please.
Going forward, seeing that we no longer have the Cuban Medical Brigade, and taking into consideration the 12 new hospitals, as well as us not basically being able to staff those hospitals, and then we're getting rid of this very integral part of the healthcare system, and where do you see Guyana going forward in terms of healthcare?
I guess you could take the where do you see Guyana going forward in terms of healthcare bit. But I could definitely, in fact, when you were speaking, I was asking myself the very same questions in terms of us already having an understaffing in terms of nurses and doctors and so forth. And what does that mean? Because it begs the question of why get rid of these people. I do know that there were talks of having people from Bangladesh and so forth here. So I'm not sure how that issue is really resolved when you get rid of one set of people to bring another set of people. And it's not just about being in the medical field, but it's also understanding culture and the language barrier and all of that. Because when these people come here, it will obviously take some time before they're able to adjust. Our culture is very different. The language is very different. And so it leaves a lot of concerns, because when you get rid of more people, it means, therefore, that you just don't have to replace those people. You have to find additional people because you're understaffed. And so it's exciting when we speak to having new hospitals being built and state of the art and so on. All these fancy words for really an empty building that is being built. But now we have to have concerns because there isn't even anything that, let us say before these actions were taken, there isn't a system where perhaps you would have given incentives. If we could have incentivized people becoming doctors and nurses, do we put something in place? Do we, to encourage more people to go along that line? We have people coming out of school every year. Is there a way to encourage more people to go along a medical path? What are we doing to fix the problem? Because if I'm to understand your question and answer your question effectively, what I would say is the government is breaking a broken system with absolutely no way of fixing it. At least not in sight at the moment. I don't know if somebody's going to go into some dark room at the back somewhere, perhaps with Kwame or so, to see how best they could come up with a solution. but there has certainly been no solution anywhere in sight as it relates to the government actually having a plan. It just seems as though these people wake up on a daily basis and whatever there is a problem with, you just move something without replacing it. So, you know, it is troubling to say the very least. In fact, that might be a very mild way of putting it in terms of the position taken by the government. If you can tell us where would be the way going forward in terms of this government, Dr. Richards, you could be very helpful in that regard because I'm unable to see how we're going forward.
Well, in that regard, staffing is always a problem, and it just adds fuel to the fire, in my opinion, when it comes to the issue with the Cuban Medical Brigade. They've been in Guyana for many years. They've done wonderful works in the healthcare system. Now a gap has been created, and the government has to find a way to fill that gap, right? But I personally believe it's going to put a certain strain on the healthcare system even further to what we already have to deal with. When you look at the lack of specialists and all of these things. And I asked that question in Parliament when we were doing the question of the estimates. And I asked about that, about the specialists and these hospitals being built. Why is it that you're still having people transfer to GPHC, right? That was another issue. And the minister's response was, well, you have some specialists referred to as super specialists.
Oh man.
And those are the ones that will be rotating and visiting among hospitals, where on the other side you have some, what we call the other specialities that will be stationed at those hospitals, right? For example, in A&E, accident and emergency, a cardiologist or whatever, they will be stationed there. But as it is right now, you don't have such specialty stationed at these new hospitals. In Linden, we don't even have a nephrologist that's there. I think just last week we had the urologist came there. I think there's probably one of the super specialists you're talking about, because they come every Friday, once a month, every Friday, right?
Wow.
So you see the gap is being created because a lot of those doctors on the Cuban Brigade, they're specialized, right? So they have to find a way to fill that, and I can assure the general public that WIN is going to be on the back to ensure that we monitor this process, to ensure that we keep the people up to date as to what is going on with their healthcare, to have the government fill that gap. It must be filled. Our people need proper healthcare. It's far too long. Even in Linden, there was an incident a few weeks ago where a young man was hit by a vehicle, right? He was in a vehicle accident, right? It was a touch and go, well, it wasn't hit and run, but the guy with his life, touch and go. And when they called Georgetown to have him transferred, I was reliably informed that Georgetown told him, no, you can't bring him because we don't have a bed available. The guy died, right? So situations like our people do not have to die, but because of simple things like these, right? So staffing is a burning issue in the healthcare system right now. And one of the things that causes this shortage of staffing too, because I remember a few years ago, I think it's in 2006, that's when I also left to go study my bachelor's degree. There was a major undertaking by the PPP government administration at that time where they trained over 300 and something doctors, I think, or close to 300 doctors were trained. What happened to those doctors today? How much or how many of them were leveled up to specialities from their general practice? How many of them are still in our system to this day? It's a question to be asked. Because I personally know many of them who've gotten tired after they served their contractual agreement of 5 years. They just left, they vanished. You don't know where they went. And these were people who worked for that 5 years. They garnered all the experience. They know the system well. And then they just left and they faded out. Many of them went to greener pastures. And some of them who left are in other countries in their healthcare system in top positions. Because they have, they got the chance, they become specialized, and then, you got a Guyanese somewhere around the world in a hospital, somewhere in a country in Africa, running the whole hospital. but we here are still struggling with healthcare. And one of the things I feel that pushes that too is what MP Primus said about the incentivizing to raise the morale of your staff. Salaries is a big problem, right? If potentially, and if the government are, if they're looking, well, I'm sure they're looking, right?
They definitely.
Yeah, right? A potential way forward, healthcare workers should be given a free plot of land, a 50 by 100, free of charge. Take some of the burden off of the backs of our people, right? MP Barker, we could spread that over to education to the teachers as well.
Definitely.
A free plot of
Right.
land, you know?
I'll
These
be
kind
back.
of, yeah, well, I think big, right?
Right.
Yeah, so, but that gap with the healthcare workers, the doctors, the specialists, they will have to work to get that gap filled. And we will be right alongside there to ensure that they get that gap filled in any way which we can do that.
I like the moving on to greener pastures, but I feel as though the government is spraying Glomaxone in our pastures over here, so our grass dying out at a rapid rate. If I may also say that as it relates to going back to the question again, and as we spoke about incentives and so on, I'm thinking because when we bring doctors here from other countries, we provide them with housing.
Yes.
We provide them with, they have different allowances and so
Yes.
forth. And in some cases, they are paid more. And so my thing is, that says to me that we can pay our people more because they live in here. You don't have to provide housing and so on. Give the people the money and stop paying people after they would have had to work so hard to qualify themselves. So invest so much money into qualifying themselves, only to be paid a little pittance, and then the stress and burden of, let us say, Georgetown Public Hospital. It is not easy at all. When you walk into that place, it is very chaotic because you have just a few nurses or doctors on site, and then you have a ton of patients, people bleeding, somebody screaming, somebody get blackout. It's all these things happening, and these just 2 or 3 people expected to function effectively in this space. So I am saying, pay people proper, decent salaries. Our nurses must be able to take a little vacation or two before the end of the year, because you need to have an opportunity to replenish and to things so that you can come back on and be able to offer the best of yourself.
Yeah.
We cannot get the best of anybody if they have to be working under these conditions and then trying to stretch a dollar to take care of themselves and their families.
Dr. Richard,
Yes,
I'm
yes.
doing the AGB News. Piggybacking on my colleague's question, notably there are a lot of medical officials or personnel who will be trained in Cuba. Do you think that this recent action by the government would hinder the efficiency of many of these medical personnel? Because while there are other institutions like Johns Hopkins in the US, Cuba would have generated a lot of proficient individuals. So do you foresee that this is going to impact the quality of service delivered in Guyana?
Well, in regards to future training, what I know for sure, there is currently bachelor's training right now in Cuba. But seeing as though this is a recent development, we're yet to see how it will affect those students who are currently training and potentially future training, right? We're yet to see how that will play out.
Correct.
All right, a separate question. Not you, but persons from the Winvest in nationhood would have recently visited the stock market. We would have seen sums of billions of dollars allocated towards the rehabilitation of municipal markets. What are your thoughts about consent, as Ms. Nanjani spoke to transparency and accountability? What are your thoughts about monies being pumped into the rehabilitation of these facilities, and persons have to face these unsanitary conditions such as the stock market? Anyone can answer.
Okay, I will. I will take the question. First of all, it really comes down to what we define as rehabilitation, because you cannot paint the front of a building and the back falling apart, and then you tell me about rehabilitation. The minister goes and takes a picture in front of the Stabrook Square and says, "Oh, we have done a lot of work to beautify this area." But if you were to take a few steps further you're going to fall through the boards that are there on the stellium if you were to go to the back there. And so what I think the government needs to do is understand when we speak to rehabilitation, it has to be a holistic thing. Because if you paint an old building in, let us say red, because that's an old building that is painted. So if you paint an old building in red, you know what you have? An old painted building. The building still remains old, the boards still remain damaged, the creases still remain there, because that is all that you have done. And I'm saying that to say that the government has not been effective in terms of enhancing these spaces, but what they do exceedingly well is window dressing. So it looks good and it makes for a good photo to upload to social media. But the reality is they have done nothing but wasted our time, and that says to me that you're not serious about development, you're not serious about preserving our history, as in the case of Stabroek, as well as you're not serious about the well-being of those people who have to commute in that area on a daily basis. You're not serious about those people who have stalls in that area as well, because being out there is a risk in terms of injury as a result of the poorly maintained facility. Do we have to wait until a building is falling down completely then to come to say, let us see what we can do? You have to build a whole new building, sir, because you waited until the whole thing falling apart. This is no longer about changing a board. This is about redoing the entire thing. And that is where we are in this country, and that is why we exist today, because there has to be somebody who actually holds this government accountable.
To add to what MP said,
Yes.
we can say 100% we have seen what this government is about, are quick fixes. And to, like my colleague said, to take some pictures, a quick fix, take some pictures, post it out there to say, oh, we looked at the problem. But then a week, 2 weeks down the line, we're back to square one. It would be claimed by the government that so many billions were spent to fix. Yet 2 weeks down the line, we're back to square one, wasting taxpayers' money. We would have heard, I cannot recall the entire speech that the Minister of Local Government gave when she was asked about the monies spent at Stabroek to rehabilitate that market. And she would have claimed, like MP saying, that, oh, you know, we planned to do this, but when we started here, we realized something here has to be fixed. A board is rotten here, zinc, a post, and so the money keeps increasing. So as a government who claim they're so capable of running this country, if you have noticed that instead of doing these quick fixes or fixing parts here and parts there, and then next 2 weeks you have to go back and do the same thing, why not do the entire project? Apart from that, let's look at the bins that the minister put down in Stabroek. That was a whole photo op going on there with her putting down bins. Yet we're back to square one. Are the bins being emptied on time? It's the after. It's not what happens there when she put the bins down. It's the after. Are we following up? Are we seeing that these garbage are picked up, the bins are emptied on time? So like I said, this government is all about quick fixes, taking out a few photos, appeasing the public that we are doing the work, but then next 2 weeks, we're back to square one. Taxpayers' money was wasted.
Dr. Richards, you spoke solely about incentivization. We are coupled with the issue of labor shortage already. Going back to my colleague's question about the Cuban brigade, do you foresee that it's going to worsen the labor shortage situation, given that we have lost so many medical personnel in the past years? That's my last question.
Okay, well, in my view, and I think it's a pretty obvious view, if it's not addressed by the government, of course it will get worse. It will get worse. Now imagine if you're going to one of the new regional hospitals they built, for example, let's say Guyana, and you go there in what we call peak hours or rush hours, and then you just have one nurse there at the table, right? That is a problem. Now, now you're going to have to enter into a situation where you're going to have to start rationing your available staff. All right? So you will have to, I'm just thinking out loud here. They're going to look at the hospitals that don't get such of a traffic load and try to ration the staffs between the ones that are getting a lot of patient load. Right? But I foresee this getting worse before it gets better. Because training viable, competent staff takes time. And that's just the training. You have to garner the experience. Because when you train, that is what the book teaches you when you learn in classroom. But then you have to get the experience to refine your skills, right? So that also takes time. So or in the case with the brigade, these people, when they came, remember, most of them, a lot of them were specialists. To be a specialist, you would have had to study a bachelor's degree, work for some time, then you elevate to a master's degree where you specialize. So they have the experience. So when they come here to work, they know what they're going to do, right? But in the hopes of our people getting adequate health care, it's a problem they're going to have to fix as soon as possible, in my opinion.
If I may add, though, to what is said, it opens the door for panic, and it seems as though unless maybe we need to get the leader to say something on this so that the government could move faster, because he seems to get their attention quite easily and comfortably. So, and I'm saying that to say that now with the removal of these specialists, and we already have a shortage of medical personnel here, it therefore means that if we have any major anything, God help us. And my thing is, before we even get to that juncture, the government has not come out and say, you know what, we have a plan, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, do not fear, we have things in place. They haven't said that. So it leaves you to think that there's nothing in place, which is a fair assumption to make, and that if something happens, then we can only turn to our respective gods and seek help, because we certainly will not be getting it in the hospitals here in this country. And so, we can boast about new hospitals being built everywhere. But what we cannot boast about is having the requisite medical personnel at those hospitals. And in some cases, machinery, which is something we spoke about on the campaign, because you were saying all the time, you could imagine, you have interior locations that has, whether it's hospitals or clinics or so forth, set up there, but things like malaria that is prevalent in that area, they don't have drugs for, they don't have this for, you got to fly the people out. Now, if you're in a place surrounded by bush and all these sorts of things, the likelihood of a snake biting you is so high. And they got to fly you out from there when a snake bites you to another place to get, it's dead, you're dead. It sounds very, but we have to be able to have realistic discussions. I don't want to come out here and sound like a politician with all of these fancy T's crossed in a nice way and I's dotted in a fancy way. We need to have realistic discussions, and the reality is you will die because the government has failed to put systems in place. And so now what we have to do as an opposition is force the government to do what is right by the people. Don't tell me about you open a hospital in Madia, or you open how equipped is that hospital to handle the medical needs of the people within that particular region or space. Let us have that discussion. That is worth boasting about. But we can't speak to that because there is nothing in place. Any other questions?
I know you briefly addressed the comments made by the opposition leader in the mosque. However, Ms. Parliament's two Gay's rights groups that came out and said that Mr. Mohammed's position is different from an assurance that he had given at an election time, that Mr. Mohammed's position is different, that I'm sure that you had given at an elections town hall on July 29th. How do you respond?
His position is different from the one that I had given at a town hall. It goes back to what I said earlier, right? The gays would like for their rights to be respected, and so would the Muslims, and so would the Christians and everybody else. We do not have to agree on the principle of what we like or don't like, or what is right or what is wrong. But at the end of the day, we have to agree that this is our position as a religion. And as I would have mentioned, well, not our position as a religion, because I'm not Muslim, but I mean generally. So I don't want that to be taken as me saying something else. But what I'm saying is that we have to be able to respect each other's views. We don't need to agree with it. And that does not by any means mean or indicate or even implicitly or explicitly state that the leader of the opposition has a problem with a particular sector of society, whether you're gay, straight, crooked, or otherwise. It does not have any such indications. And my thing is, if you are forbidden to be in a certain space, unless you fit a certain bill based on the religion of a person, then I think that that should be respected. I mean, it is unfortunate, and I will say this because I'm a very candid person, but very many of those people who are complaining or who take umbrage by what was said are not even Muslims. They're not even going there in the first place. So why does it even bother you? Who is the gay Muslim that has spoken out? I haven't heard from any such person. So I'm saying that we're creating a mountain out of a molehill. And I do believe, and as I would have stated earlier, that this is an opportunity that has opened the door for dialogue. And if you are going to have something useful come out of this, then that dialogue is important. The only thing that we have had come out of this so far is Susan coming out to be a proud gay. But outside of that, nothing has come out of this situation, and that is unfortunate because it is not helpful.
Additionally, Ms. Primus, can you outline what the agenda is for Parliament in the coming months in terms of motions, bills, representation on committees?
Representation
On committees.
on committees. That would have been an excellent question for MP Tabitha. But what we have done though is outline a couple of motions that we'd like to bring to the table, as in the case of MP Nandrani just asking a question publicly, as I would have indicated. That also is one of the things that we would have put forward. But what I can tell you is that at our next press conference, because we have broken down these press conferences to touch on different issues, so if people are tuned in on a regular basis, they would be able to have a holistic picture, because you can't come and give people everything at once. So we have broken it down into tidbits. So this week, this person comes, they deal with this and so on. But in terms of an in-depth response to your question, that would definitely be handled in our next press conference. We have no idea when Parliament will reconvene, but we have continued to put things forward as it relates to national issues. And now that you would have had an opportunity to be able to see more of what's happening, to hear more of the concerns, we do have a hotline. Please don't ask me what's the number. I have not memorized it, but I will be more than happy to share it on my page just before you get excited with your questions. We do have a hotline number, and people have been sending in questions and concerns and so forth. And so we have taken a position even before the elections would have been concluded, is that our mandate and that of the leader has been to focus on issues that are affecting the people. And so our position moving forward is one that covers what the people are asking for and what they're looking forward to. So we're in the process of putting all of that together. Some of it is already put together. Some of the questions are already put together. Some are already sent in as well. But of course, we would be able to dig into what that looks like in a more meatier discussion at our next press conference on Friday.
Lastly, has one begun contingency planning for the possibility that its leader could be extradited to the U.S.?
Have we begun contingency plan that our leader might be extradited to, possibly extradited to the US? No, we haven't. We haven't gotten to that juncture. I don't think, well, I do hope that we don't ever get there. I'm sure that the government is excited and unsettled in their seats, hoping that he does, because he holds them accountable on a daily basis. And so while that hope exists over there, we have a different kind of hope over here, that the right thing prevails and the judgment is in our favor, so that at the end of this, we were able to continue. And even though you didn't ask, I'd like to extend, because I don't get to come on the press conferences very often. So when I come, I'd like to, as Guyanese would say, talk out all my talking. So what I additionally would like to say, because I have seen that in the public too, a lot of talks about us, all of us, not you, the media, but the supporters and the members of the party are here because Azadin Mohammed is rich and he's paying all of us. Truth be told, I wish if he was paying me, indeed. It's not a bad idea. I don't want to say it's a bad idea, so don't discourage him. Pay me. I wish. But that unfortunately is not the case. And we are all here because people have genuine interest and a genuine love for country. And we all want to see better. And we have been failed time and time again by the political parties that existed within this country. Not saying that none of them has done no good, because they have a tendency of interpreting things their own way and running, helter-skelter. But to say that we want to see something that is different, and we have seen that in Mr. Mohammed, in that he actually has the people's interest at heart. And while we're a new party, we're not going to get everything right. We can get a couple of things wrong and so on. But we will continue to work and do what we feel is best for the people based on what they would have shared with us. And so our support and our love is not because Azadin is a rich man, but because he is prepared, willing, and of course, realistically, as the financial means, to have a fight against it. We have to keep it 100, have a real fight against this government who seems to be anti-human beings who are not them. And so I would like to add that bit. So I just in case they, somebody from the US is looking on, maybe the ambassador or so, I would just like to say that we would like to keep Azadin here so that he can continue to fight for us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Every premise, I know due to the essence of time, but if I can just throw in one last question. I know I said initially my last question, but following up on my colleague's context with motion, MP Sharon Duncan recently would have submitted a motion for allowing the media to have the regular coverage of Parliament. This motion, disappointingly, has been disallowed or blocked by the Speaker. Your thoughts on this, quickly?
I think you are asking questions that will see the Speaker for not liking us over here. But,
Proceed.
but to answer that question, I think it is wholly unfortunate. And again, I say these are things that allows for speculation to fester in terms of why, and if things are being edited, and if we're getting the real version, and if there's anything that's missing. The media has their job to do. And my thing is allow them to do their job. And that goes back to the same question of the gays and the and religious beliefs and so on. You don't have to agree with the way the people in the media put out the message. If it don't make you happy, don't read it. They are, I don't know, you're with Chronicle? Excuse me, he's with Chronicle?
No, he's with
Nice News. Okay, sorry. Like the Chronicle, for example, I don't read what they put out. No, I see his badges start the entire time, so I thought maybe he's hiding. So, like for example, I don't read what the Chronicle says because it doesn't interest me. Sometimes people send things to me, so in that case I may see a couple of things. But if something don't interest you, don't go there. So if the speaker or whomever is not happy with a particular newspaper and the way they report things, don't read the news. It's as simple as that. Block their page on social media. You don't have to see it at all. And I am saying, allow the media to come in and to give coverage, because everybody attracts a different group of people. Nightly news people is not cultural news people. They may overlap in some instances, but people got a particular place that they trust and that they go to. Some people want to go to News Source. Some people want to be at HGPTV, and so on. So I do not see how allowing the media in can affect the Parliament and the ongoings of what happens in there. So I just think it's an unnecessary fight. Like, just let the people in, for the love of God.
Just to add to what MP Odessa said, the government claims they're so transparent. This cannot hurt them in any way. It only would show the public more that they are as transparent as they say they are if they're to allow all the media houses in there. They cannot claim transparency and only allow the state media in there. That is not what you call transparency. So the government should rethink that.
They should rethink it. They should change it to stop this nonsense. I mean, whose idea is this? Call me. Is he the media person? He, I think, has some responsibility for the media there as it relates to the government. Listen, this is not a PPP parliament. This is the people's parliament.
Exactly.
And you allow the people in there and allow people to be able to do their jobs and to get things done effectively. There are no other questions, if I'm correct?
No.
Awesome sauce. So since there are no other questions, I'd like to take this opportunity to say, to reiterate rather what I would have said earlier. Thank you very much to the media for being here. Of course, thanks to all those persons who are working behind the camera, scratching their hair and so on. Thanks to all of our MPs, because we do work together to put together what happens here. We have a wonderful team. We call them our media team. That's very creative. We have our media team who've been working together to ensure that we are properly prepared for our press conferences on Fridays. And so I want to say a big thank you to them for that. Thank you for everybody who would have presented here today. Fantastic job. Thanks to all those persons who would have been part of our live coverage, who have been sharing and liking and commenting and so on. I will try whenever I'm here to be on the page just in case people have questions and so on, so that we can have those questions and concerns and queries addressed in our upcoming meetings. We will be here next Friday again, so we do look forward to seeing all of you, darlings. Do have a splendid rest of the day. And who? You see, I had to be prompted. See, it's a good thing they have. So Sunday is International Women's Day. No, I was not guided. I came up with this by myself. Sunday is International Women's Day, and before we leave, I was reminded by my colleague to wish all of our women across this beautiful nation a happy International Women's Day. I do hope you have a fantastic day. As far as I'm concerned, every day is International Women's Day. That's how great and fantastic we are. Are you disagreeing?
No, I agree.
Oh, good.
I agree.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
I agree, but you know they always say men are wrong.
So we'd like to extend those greetings. Do remember to be safe, to be careful. Out there, a lot has been happening. Our women folk needs to be better protected. So in as much as we celebrate International Women's Day and our women are worthy of celebration, it is also important to note that our women are also worthy of protection. And so I do hope that we do the right thing to ensure that our women are properly protected, that adequate systems are put in place to ensure the protection of the best species that God has put on the face of this earth.
Amen.
Thank you very much, and we'll see you guys again next week. Have a great one.
All right.